The vast expanse of Earth's sky was suddenly pierced by an eerie sight. A fleet of massive alien ships appeared, cutting through the atmosphere with terrifying precision. Their sleek, dark shapes glinted against the backdrop of the stars, appearing almost invincible. These were the Xyrians, an ancient and technologically superior alien race. For centuries, they had dominated countless worlds, enslaving weaker species and expanding their empire with ease. Earth, to them, was just another planet to conquer, another primitive world for their empire to add to their collection. But the Xyrians had made one grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. As the alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the planet remained eerily still. No human force showed itself. No defenses were launched. It seemed as though Earth had already accepted its fate, standing helpless before the Xyrian onslaught. From the Xyrian flagship, Commander Thurak, a ruthless leader with a cold demeanor, watched the blue planet below with a twisted smile. "They won't fight," Thurak muttered to himself. "This will be easier than I thought. Their primitive technology won't stand a chance against us." The fleet began to descend further into Earth's orbit. The Xyrians were confident. Their intelligence had gathered reports of Earth's backward technology, and they had no reason to believe anything would stand in their way. Their fleet consisted of powerful warships, capable of obliterating entire cities with a single blast. The humans were nothing to them, weak, primitive creatures who had never seen the stars until recently. But what the Xyrians didn't know was that Earth was ready. The silence that surrounded them was not a sign of surrender but of preparation. Behind the calm exterior, hidden beneath layers of secrecy, humanity had been silently preparing for this day. For years, Earth had secretly developed technology that would defy even the most advanced civilizations. They had been waiting for this moment, and now it was finally here. Captain Rachel Blake stood in the command center of Earth's most advanced warship, the Wrath of Earth. Her eyes were locked on the holographic display in front of her, which showed the alien fleet moving toward Earth. She knew what the Xyrians were thinking. They believed they had already won, and that was exactly why they would lose. "Captain, the Xyrian fleet is now entering Earth's orbit," her communications officer said, his voice tense. "They don't seem to be taking any defensive measures. They're just coming in." Rachel's fingers hovered over the controls, her gaze steely. Her face betrayed no emotion, but inside, a storm of thoughts churned. She had been preparing for this day for years, ever since the first signs of the Xyrian invasion had been detected. She knew that Earth was vastly outmatched, but she also knew one thing. Humanity had something the Xyrians did not: heart. "Prepare the cloaking device," Rachel commanded, her voice cold but determined. "And ready the drones. We strike now." Her team moved swiftly, activating Earth's greatest secret weapon. The cloaking device, a revolutionary piece of technology, rendered the Wrath of Earth invisible to the Xyrian ship's sensors. With the drones, high-tech, autonomous combat machines capable of independent thought, set to deploy, Earth's forces were about to send a message to the Xyrians that they would never forget. As the Xyrian fleet approached, Rachel stood tall in the center of the command deck. The tension in the air was palpable. The Xyrians, still oblivious to the trap waiting for them, continued their descent, their ships coming closer and closer to Earth. Thurak was confident that victory was at hand. Then, without warning, the Wrath of Earth and its drones launched a surprise attack. The cloaking device deactivated, revealing the human warship in a flash of brilliant light. The Xyrians had no time to react as high-tech drones swarmed their fleet, engaging in brutal combat. The Xyrian ship's navigation systems were instantly scrambled as the drones unleashed a barrage of laser fire, disabling their controls and causing chaos throughout the fleet. The Xyrians had no idea what hit them. They had relied on their advanced technology and believed they were invincible. But they were about to learn that humans were not the weak, helpless species they thought they were. Earth was not as defenseless as they had assumed. As the chaos erupted, Commander Therak's calm demeanor faltered for the first time. He watched helplessly as his ships were destroyed by the unexpected attack. His fleet was in disarray, and panic spread among the Xyrian ranks. The humans weren't supposed to be this strong. They weren't supposed to be this capable. Rachel's voice cut through the chaos, chilling and calm. They won't leave Earth alive. Humanity will be remembered. Her words echoed through the command deck, sending a wave of determination through her crew. This was their moment, and they would not let it slip away. The Xyrians had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. What they failed to realize was that the very qualities they thought made humans weak, resilience, determination, and a refusal to give up, were the qualities that would make them impossible to defeat. As the battle raged on, Rachel's thoughts raced. The Xyrians were powerful, but humanity had something they didn't, an unshakable will to fight for survival. And that would be their ultimate weapon. The humans were not done yet. This was just the beginning. The stage was set. The Xyrians had unknowingly opened the door to a war they weren't prepared for, a war where humanity would no longer be the prey, but the predator. And this time, it was the Xyrians who would learn that nothing in the galaxy was as dangerous as a species that had been pushed to the brink of extinction. The fight for Earth had begun, and there was no turning back. The silence of space was shattered as the Xyrians unleashed their fury. From their massive warships, they launched a devastating orbital bombardment aimed at Earth's cities. The alien commanders, confident in their superior technology, believed that this would break the human spirit. They expected the humans to surrender immediately, their cities reduced to ash, the survivors trembling in fear. They had done it to countless other worlds before, and they assumed Earth would be no different. But they had gravely underestimated humanity. As the Xyrian weapons rained down on Earth, Captain Rachel Blake stood at the helm of the Wrath of Earth, her eyes fixed on the unfolding chaos. The bombardment was relentless. Buildings crumbled, and the sky was filled with smoke and fire as Xyrian missiles tore through Earth's defenses. For a moment, it seemed as if the human race might be on the verge of annihilation. But instead of surrendering, Earth responded with something the Xyrians hadn't expected: retaliation. A wave of human warships, hidden by cloaking technology, appeared from the shadows of space, moving with blinding speed toward the Xyrian fleet. The humans were no longer hiding in fear. They were fighting back. These warships, equipped with eye-guided missiles and cloaking devices, were more advanced than the Xyrians had ever imagined. With pinpoint precision, the human ships unleashed a barrage of missiles that cut through the Xyrian forces like a hot knife through butter. The battle in Earth's orbit erupted into a chaos of flashing lights, explosions, and high-speed maneuvers. The Xyrians, caught off guard, struggled to respond as human warships cloaked and darted in and out of their fleet, attacking with ferocity and speed. The humans weren't just defending. They were fighting like predators, striking swiftly and disappearing before the enemy could retaliate. Rachel's voice crackled over the intercom, cold and commanding. "Strike hard. Don't give them a chance to regroup. We show them who the predators are now." Her orders were clear, and her soldiers executed them with deadly precision. The human forces were relentless, turning the tide in what had been a hopeless battle just moments before. The Xyrians were forced to scramble, their pride beginning to crack under the weight of human determination. Their ships, once so confident and imposing, now appeared clumsy and disoriented, their once impenetrable defenses failing under the constant barrage of human firepower. But this was just the beginning. As the human ships continued their attack, a new phase of the battle began, one that would take the fight directly to the heart of the Xyrian warships. Rachel's command was simple but effective: board the enemy ships and engage in close-quarters combat. Human soldiers, equipped with alien technology that they had stolen or adapted, suited up for the most dangerous phase of the conflict. Captain Blake led the charge, her face set in a grim expression. She knew that the outcome of this battle could determine the fate of humanity, and she wasn't about to back down now. As the soldiers boarded the Xerian ships, the sounds of intense combat filled the air. The space outside was a battlefield of twisting warships, cloaked in shadows, while inside the alien vessels, the fight was even more brutal. Armed with Xerian weapons, the humans fought back with a raw, primal energy, their anger and desperation fueling them. It was a savage, hand-to-hand fight against a technologically superior enemy, but the humans were determined to make it their own. The battle was fierce and fast-paced. Human soldiers clashed with Xerian warriors in corridors filled with sparks, as alien technology malfunctioned under the pressure of their assault. The humans fought with everything they had, using alien weapons against the very species that had created them. Each soldier's movements were swift, calculated, driven by the belief that this was their only chance to win. Rachel herself was at the forefront, leading by example, taking down Xerian soldiers with brutal efficiency. But amidst the chaos, something went terribly wrong. Bonner, one of Rachel's closest soldiers, was struck down in the heat of battle. A Xerian blade pierced his side as he attempted to disable one of their weapon systems. His body crumpled to the floor, and the sound of his death echoed through the comms, striking fear into the hearts of the soldiers. "No," Rachel shouted, her voice breaking for the first time. Bonner had been more than a soldier to her. He had been a friend, a brother in arms. The loss hit her harder than she had expected, but it also fueled her determination. "Push forward," she commanded, her voice steady once more, though her heart ached. For Bonner, for Earth. Her soldiers, now filled with rage and grief, fought with renewed vigor. The loss of one of their own only solidified their resolve. They were no longer fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for the memory of their fallen comrades, for the future of Earth, and for the honor of humanity itself. The emotional toll of the battle weighed heavily on the humans, but it also made them stronger. Each soldier carried the weight of Bonner's death with them, turning their grief into strength. They fought not just for themselves, but for every person they had lost, every life that had been taken by the Xerians. And as the battle raged on, it became clear that the Xerians had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The fight was far from over, but the humans had already shown the Xerians one thing. They were not going to give up. They were not going to surrender. And no matter how powerful their enemies were, humanity had something the Xerians could never replicate: the strength to fight, the courage to endure, and the heart to keep going, no matter the cost. In the end, it was this very heart that would drive them to victory. The first clash of many had begun, and humanity had already made its mark. The Xerians would never forget the fierce resistance they faced here, the day when Earth fought back against impossible odds. The Xerians were in disbelief. After all their advancements and technological superiority, they had underestimated Earth's resolve. Their fleet had suffered significant losses, and their initial bombardment of Earth had been met with fierce resistance. But the aliens were not ones to give up easily. Despite the shock they had felt, they were determined to crush humanity once and for all. And for that, they brought out their most fearsome weapon. A massive Xerian flagship, larger and more powerful than any ship the humans had faced before, appeared in Earth's orbit. This ship was different. It was not just a warship. It was a mobile command center, its brain a fully integrated AI system that controlled the entire Xerian fleet. The AI, known as Sarath, was designed to outthink, outmaneuver, and overwhelm any opponent. It had the power to make decisions in fractions of a second, anticipate every move, and eliminate any threat before it had a chance to strike. The Xerians believed this would be the final blow to humanity. With Sarath controlling the entire fleet, no human ship could survive for long. They felt the war was as good as over. But what they didn't count on was the strength of human spirit. Captain Rachel Blake stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, staring out at the massive Xerian flagship. Her crew, now battered and bruised from the last battle, looked to her for guidance. Their faces were tired, their eyes hollow from the loss of comrades, but there was fire in their hearts. They had seen death up close, but it had not broken them. If anything, it had made them stronger. "We're not done yet," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The Xyrians think they've won, but they've made a mistake. They underestimated us. Now it's time to make them regret that." Her words resonated with her crew. The death of their comrades, especially Bonner, had weighed heavily on them. But Rachel's leadership inspired them to push forward. The mission they had ahead of them was risky, but it was the only option they had. If they were to have any hope of defeating the Xyrians, they needed to take out the source of their power, Xarath, the AI that controlled the flagship. "Let's infiltrate the flagship," Rachel continued. "We're going in, and we're going to destroy that AI. If we can take down Xarath, the Xyrians lose their strategic advantage, and the battle shifts in our favor. It's a long shot, but it's our shot." The plan was simple but dangerous. The human forces would board the flagship and make their way through its labyrinthine corridors to reach Xarath's core. The ship was heavily guarded, filled with automated defenses and armed robots. The odds of success were slim, but Blake knew they had no other choice. The crew was ready to lay down their lives for Earth, and that made them more dangerous than any machine. As they boarded the Xyrian flagship, the soldiers were immediately met with a wall of resistance. The first wave of alien drones, controlled by Xarath, came at them with precision and lethal force. The humans, undeterred, fought back with a fury that only those who have lost everything can understand. Every move was calculated, but their emotions ran deep. Each step forward was a testament to the sacrifices they had already made. The alien drones were relentless. Metal clashed against metal as the soldiers used alien weapons they had captured, fighting fire with fire. The corridors of the flagship were narrow, claustrophobic, and full of traps set by the AI to slow them down. Automated turrets sprang to life, firing at them from hidden alcoves, while Xyrian soldiers appeared from every corner, intent on stopping them. Rachel led the charge, her every movement fueled by the memory of her fallen comrades. Bonner's death had left a hole in her heart, but it had also ignited a fire within her. She fought with a vengeance, using her grief as a weapon, as a shield against the overwhelming odds they faced. Every corner they turned, every room they cleared, they faced new dangers. The human soldiers moved as one, united in their purpose, pushing forward despite the ever-present threat of death. Their will was stronger than anything Xarath could throw at them. As they advanced deeper into the flagship, the reality of their mission became clearer. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about taking back control, about fighting for their future. Rachel's mind raced as she led her crew, keeping them focused on the mission. There was no room for fear. There was only the mission. The AI had to be destroyed. Finally, they'd reached the central command room, where Xarath's core was located. The room was filled with pulsating lights and mechanical hums, the very essence of the AI that had been controlling the entire fleet. In the center stood Xarath's core, a massive, complex piece of technology, surrounded by layers of security systems and deadly traps. The soldiers took up positions, scanning the area for any immediate threats. Rachel's voice rang out over the comms, rallying her team for the final push. "We've come this far, and we're not backing down. This is for Bonner, for all of us. We end this here." With a surge of energy, the soldiers charged, breaching the security systems and fighting their way to Xarath's core. The AI responded instantly, activating the final line of defense. Robotic guardians, more advanced and deadly than anything they had encountered before. But the humans, fueled by their grief and their determination, fought with unmatched tenacity. As the battle raged on, Rachel's words echoed in their minds. For Earth, for our fallen brothers and sisters, for humanity. In the end, it was the human spirit that won the day. Against overwhelming odds, they destroyed Xarath, sending a shockwave through the Xyrian fleet. The tide of the battle had turned. Humanity had proven one undeniable truth. They were not to be underestimated. The heart of the Syrian flagship was a cold, mechanical place, filled with humming machines and eerie, artificial lights that bathed the walls in an unnatural glow. The humans had made their way to the core, through narrow corridors that smelled of metal and oil, and now they were preparing for the final confrontation. Captain Rachel Blake led the charge, her soldiers standing at the ready, each with their weapons aimed at the heart of the enemy's ship. Every footstep they took seemed to echo louder in the silence of the flagship. They weren't alone in the room. At the far end, standing with the arrogance of a conqueror, was Tharak, the Syrian commander. He stood tall, his alien features sharp and menacing, draped in the armor of his people. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto Blake's with the kind of disdain that only a superior could have for the underdog. He had been watching them, studying them. The Syrians had underestimated humanity before, but now they would finally understand the true cost of that mistake. The air crackled with tension as Blake and Tharak sized each other up. The two leaders were separated by only a few feet, but it felt like miles. Behind Blake, her team was ready for anything. Each soldier was breathing heavily, heartbeats pounding in their chests, ready to die for their home planet. They had come so far, and now they would fight until their last breath. Tharak spoke first, his voice a low growl. "You think you can defeat us? We are the masters of the galaxy. You, humans, are nothing but a fleeting moment in time." Rachel's eyes narrowed, her voice steady as she replied, "We're more than that. You've made a mistake coming here. We fight for Earth, and we fight for the ones we've lost." In that moment, the sound of blasters charging filled the air, and the battle began. The room erupted into chaos as laser blasts flew through the air, slicing through the walls and exploding in flashes of light. The humans moved with practiced precision, ducking behind pillars of alien metal and returning fire with every shot. The Syrian forces, led by Tharak himself, met them head-on, his soldiers moving with the kind of deadly efficiency that only the Syrians could manage. The sound of explosions rocked the flagship, sending debris falling from the ceiling. Shattered pieces of alien technology littered the floor as the two sides clashed in a furious battle. Blake's soldiers pushed forward, fighting tooth and nail, using their knowledge of human tactics and their sheer will to overpower the advanced alien forces. Every step they took was a victory, but every step they took was also a gamble. Rachel and Tharak locked eyes across the battlefield, each waiting for the other to make the first move. The two commanders were locked in a deadly standoff, their forces clashing around them, but neither willing to blink. Finally, Tharak lunged, his claws aiming for Rachel's throat. But Rachel was quicker. She sidestepped, spinning on her heel, and fired her blaster directly at his chest. Tharak staggered backward, but his armor absorbed the shot, leaving him unharmed. The fight was far from over. Meanwhile, the humans in the background fought fiercely. One of Blake's lieutenants, Sergeant Lee, was pinned behind a console, holding off a group of Syrian soldiers. He fired round after round, his hand steady even as the battle raged on around him. The room was alive with the crackle of energy blasts and the hum of the Syrian ship's failing technology. Human soldiers exchanged fire with alien drones, each shot a moment of hope, every moment a struggle for survival. The humans had a secret weapon, and now was the time to use it. Rachel gave the order, and the soldiers activated the device they had stolen from the Syrian warship, a weapon capable of destabilizing the entire fleet. It hummed to life with a deep metallic growl, sending a shockwave through the entire flagship. The weapon's power coursed through the ship's systems, disrupting energy flows, causing sparks to fly from broken circuits. Then, in an instant, the flagship exploded. A massive detonation rocked the ship, sending a shockwave that rippled through space. The force of the explosion was so great that the entire flagship shuddered. The shockwave sent debris flying, and the once proud ship began to crumble from within. Tharak was thrown backward by the blast, and Rachel could see the shock and disbelief in his eyes. The Xyrians had lost their edge, and now they were reeling from the unexpected turn of events. The battle was not over yet, however. As the flagship began to break apart, the remaining Xyrian ships outside were thrown into disarray. The once coordinated fleet was now vulnerable. Earth's forces saw this opening and launched a final coordinated strike. Human warships, previously cloaked and waiting for the right moment, emerged from the shadows. With their weapons primed and their targets locked, they began their assault on the remaining Xyrian ships. Laser blasts lit up the sky, striking Xyrian ships with deadly precision. Explosions erupted in the vacuum of space, lighting up the darkness with flashes of bright fire. The human fleet moved in, their ships performing a deadly dance as they dodged Xyrian fire and retaliated with speed and power. The Xyrians, disoriented by the destruction of their flagship, were no match for the coordinated efforts of the human forces. The skies above Earth became a battlefield, filled with the whine of engines, the boom of weapons, and the devastating sounds of ships being torn apart. Rachel stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, watching the spectacle unfold in front of her. The final push was in motion, and she could feel the momentum shifting in their favor. Her heart pounded in her chest, but there was no fear, only determination. She watched as Xyrian ships disintegrated, one after the other, torn apart by the sheer power and will of Earth's forces. The human fleet, though outnumbered, was relentless. The tide of the war had turned. And then, in the midst of it all, the Xyrian flagship exploded into pieces, its once proud hull now a smoldering ruin. The remaining Xyrian ships scattered, retreating in disarray, but it was too late. Humanity had won. The battlefield was silent now, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. Earth's victory was undeniable, but it came at a heavy price. The remains of Xyrian ships floated in the dark void of space, their once imposing forms now reduced to wreckage and debris. The human fleet, though victorious, was not unscathed. The stars above Earth were no longer filled with the sound of weapons firing, but with the quiet aftermath of a hard-fought war. Captain Rachel Blake stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Earth, her hands clenched into fists at her sides as she stared out into the vastness of space. The war had been won, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Many of her comrades were gone, their lives lost in the battle to protect their home. Among them was Bonner, one of her closest soldiers and a man she had trusted with her life. His absence left a gaping hole in her heart, a reminder of the sacrifice that came with their victory. Blake closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself the space to grieve. She thought of Bonner, of all the soldiers who had fallen. The pain was raw, but she pushed it down. They had fought for this moment, for the survival of humanity, and they had won. That was the legacy they would leave behind, a legacy of strength, courage, and unwavering resolve. The comms channel buzzed, pulling Blake out of her thoughts. A voice echoed over the speaker, the voice of General Harper, who had led Earth's ground forces. "Captain, we've received word from the Council. They're calling this a historic victory. The Xyrians are retreating. We've shattered their AI supremacy." Blake nodded solemnly, though she couldn't bring herself to smile. The victory was theirs, but the faces of the fallen haunted her. She turned to face the crew, her eyes scanning the room. Every soldier aboard the Wrath of Earth had been through hell. They had fought against an overwhelming force, a technologically superior enemy, and yet they had emerged victorious. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they knew better. "They'll never forget what humanity is capable of," Blake murmured, more to herself than anyone else. She took a deep breath and addressed her crew. "We've proven that no matter the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, humanity will stand strong. We fight for what's ours. We fight for those we've lost." The soldiers nodded in agreement, their faces tired but resolute. Their victory was hard-earned, but they knew it was only the beginning. Earth was no longer just a small, insignificant planet on the edge of the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Xyrians had learned that lesson the hard way. As Blake gazed at the stars, she couldn't help but think of all that had led to this moment. The Xyrians had believed their AI supremacy would make them invincible, that their advanced technology would crush the humans without a second thought. But they had underestimated the power of the human spirit. The will to survive, to protect one's home, was stronger than any machine or alien fleet. It was a truth the Xyrians had come to realize too late. The final scene of the battle played in Blake's mind. The explosion of the Xyrian flagship, the coordinated strike by Earth's forces, and the sheer determination in her soldiers' eyes. They had fought with everything they had, and it had been enough. The Xyrians had retreated, their fleet in ruins, their once mighty AI systems now shattered. For the first time in history, humanity had proven that they could stand toe-to-toe with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Blake stood tall, her face hardening with resolve. The war was over, but there would be no time for rest. Earth's forces had made their mark. But there were other enemies out there. And humanity's fight for survival wasn't over. The galaxy would never forget the name of Earth, the planet that had refused to bow to the might of the Xyrians. Her final words echoed through the empty bridge, resonating with every soldier aboard. We are humanity. We will never bow. We will always fight. As the camera zoomed out, showing the wreckage of the Xyrian fleet and the human ships standing victorious, the words lingered in the air, a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. The battle had been won, but the fight for the future of Earth and the galaxy was just beginning. And as long as humanity stood united, there would be no force in the universe that could defeat them. The stars above Earth shone brighter than ever before. The war had ended, but its ripples were just beginning to reach across the galaxy. Earth, once considered a backwater planet, had risen from the ashes of battle to stand as a formidable force. The Xyrians, who had once mocked humanity, were now scattered and defeated, their fleet in ruins. Yet this victory, as hard-earned as it was, had marked only the beginning of a new chapter for humankind. As the human forces regrouped, there was a quiet pride in the air. The soldiers had fought valiantly, and Captain Rachel Blake had led them to victory. But she knew that this triumph was just the first of many challenges to come. Humanity had proven itself, but now it had to prove it could survive in a galaxy full of enemies. The news of Earth's victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Alien species, who once viewed humanity as weak, now saw them as a force to be reckoned with. The Xyrians were the first to fall, but they would not be the last. New alliances were being formed, and old enemies were rethinking their strategies. The galaxy had taken notice, and humanity was now firmly on the map. Captain Blake stood on the command deck of the Wrath of Earth, gazing out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched before her, filled with unknown possibilities. The victory over the Xyrians had brought humanity respect, but it had also opened the door to new threats. Blake knew that Earth had earned its place among the stars, but that position came with responsibilities and dangers. Suddenly, the comms system crackled to life, breaking the silence. It was a message, but not from any familiar source. The voice that came through was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it, a warning. The word sent a chill down Blake's spine. "You have won today, Captain Blake," the voice said. "But the galaxy is not what it seems. There are far darker forces waiting, forces far more powerful than you can imagine. You have awoken something ancient." Blake's brow furrowed as she listened, her instincts on high alert. "Who is this?" she demanded, but the response was eerily cryptic. "We are the Xatheri," the voice replied. "We have watched humanity, and we have seen your strength. But your victory over the Xyrians has drawn the attention of powers far beyond your comprehension. Prepare yourselves. The true war is about to begin." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Blake staring at the blank screen, her mind racing. The Cathari were a name she had never heard before, but the tone of their warning was unmistakable. Whoever they were powerful, and they had just sent a message to Earth that would change everything. Blake turned to her crew, who were equally shaken by the message. The room was silent, the weight of the unknown pressing down on everyone. They had just defeated one of the most technologically advanced alien species in the galaxy, but now they were being warned of something even worse lurking in the shadows. The Cathari, Blake murmured, her mind working through the implications. We've faced the Xyrians, but we're not ready for whatever this. The crew nodded, their expressions grim. They had fought hard to get to this point, but now it seemed like their toughest battle was still ahead. The unknown loomed large, and Blake knew they had to be ready for whatever was coming. As Earth's forces prepared to bolster their defenses and strategize their next move, the camera slowly panned out from the Earth, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. In the distance, massive alien ships, far larger than anything humanity had encountered, loomed on the horizon. Their sleek, dark forms seemed to stretch on for miles, a chilling reminder that Earth was no longer alone in this galaxy. Blake's thoughts were interrupted as she looked at the distant ships, their presence sending a wave of unease through her. The Xyrians had been just the beginning. The Cathari, and whatever other forces lay beyond them, were coming. Earth's violent entry into the galaxy had just begun. As the camera zoomed out further, showing the Earth surrounded by a growing number of alien ships, Blake's words echoed in the quiet of the bridge. We may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. Humanity's violent entry into the galaxy has just begun. The screen faded to black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, the promise of new, more terrifying challenges ahead hanging in the air. The true test of humanity's strength was yet to come, and no one could predict what the future would hold. But one thing was certain: humanity would face it head-on, with all the determination and resilience it had shown in the face of the Xyrian invasion. The galaxy had been put on notice, and humanity was no longer just a small, insignificant planet. They were players in a much larger game, and the stakes had never been higher. The future of Earth, and the galaxy itself, was now in their hands.